Hi guys, this is GSMDome.com and I'm here with the Sony Xperia Z5 for a full review. This is part of the Xperia Z5 trio that debuted at IFA 2015 in Berlin last fall. We have already reviewed the Xperia Z5 Premium. Time for the Xperia Z5. So it's priced at around $500 on Amazon.com, and now let's talk about the design. So first things first, we're dealing with a phone that's both compact and elegant, comes in black, gold, green or white, measures 7.3 millimeters in thickness and weighs 154 grams, and it's 0.5 millimeters slimmer than the Xperia Z5 Premium and 26 grams lighter. It's a rectangular phone with slightly rounded edges, and the bad thing about this design is that its edges are a bit lifted above the screen and above the back, and they feel like they cut into your fingers a little bit after a long period of usage. Also, I have to say that one-hand usage isn't exactly very easy because the phone is quite wide and quite long, so not exactly very easy to reach all the areas, in spite of having a pretty reasonable diagonal of 5.2 inches. We're getting here a metal frame, and from what I understood, these are actually polycarbonate edges that cover up the metal frame, and we have big screen bezels. Let's see those again. When I say big, I mean big by current standards, since the phones have ultra slim bezels. This one is a matte glass panel at the back, glass panel at the front, and I find the volume buttons placement to be very uncomfortable. I don't know why Sony imagined that putting them lower would be comfier. Well, it's not. Speaking of lack of comfort, this power button is too deep, and pressing it triggers a very nasty clicking sound, and also is very hard to find when tapping the side. So overall uncomfortable buttons, and the device itself is a bit uncomfortable because of the edges, and it's a pretty phone but in the end not comfy. I also have to mention that it's resilient to water and dust within the IP65 and IP68 certifications. Now if you want to talk about the hardware, let me start off with the display. It's a 5.2 inch IPS LCD with a full HD resolution, and we got a video app right here that includes both your videos and things you'll be able to stream straight from Sony's services, trailers and all that. Okay, but if you go into my library, we can check out the quality of the screen by viewing a test video. So the experience, well, we have a bright screen, a clear image, vibrant colors and pretty wide viewing angles. Other than that, the contrast is pretty much okay, and there is absolutely no problem in full sunlight. Now let's see how this device handled our tests, because we also tested the screen. And these are the pixels. We have RGB striped pixels as shown under the microscope, and the lux meter value is quite good, actually very good, 537 lux units. This is a great value. We beat the Sony Xperia Z5 Premium that had 381 lux, and for example the HTC One A9 and the Galaxy S5. As usual, we have quite a few options that are related to the screen. You can find them here. We have wallpaper, clock, system icons, image enhancement is set to off, X-Reality for mobile, which improves the viewing quality of photos and videos, and super vivid mode for those who like some colors with an extra punch. Glove mode, brightness level, adaptive brightness, white balance with 3 RGB sliders, sleep, smart backlight, font size, tap to wake up, and that's pretty much it. So overall I have to say that this screen is great, especially compared to the latest Xperias we've tested. And now the CPU here is an octa-core Qualcomm Snapdragon 810, and this one comes with Adreno 430 GPU, 3GB of RAM and 32GB of storage to accompany it as other hardware specs. We have a microSD card slot with up to 200GB supported, and as you can see the interface is very fluid, it has no lag and functioning is great, especially after we updated to Marshmallow compared to the Lollipop version we had when we did the unboxing. Other than that, we're running games pretty much okay, like for example the Riptide GP2, Hopeless 2 and other titles. This is Riptide GP2. You can set the graphics all the way up and enjoy some very nice lighting effects, shadows, dynamic lighting, very nice looking water and all that. Here we go. Good gaming experience, nothing to object, and it can probably run any game you throw at it, both this year and the next, with a bit of luck, 2 years from now. So gaming checks out, performance is quite good, and performance also means benchmarks. And an interesting feat here, well, the results we got initially were on the good side. You can see here some of the results, you can find all of them in the full text review. Things to remember: in quadrant we surpassed the Lenovo Vive X3, in Antutu we were below the LG Nexus 5X, in 3D Mark we surpassed OnePlus 2. However, after updating to Marshmallow, the results jumped a bit. So initially, this is the score we got in Antutu 6, 63,000, but after the Marshmallow update, it increased by 10,000 points, so expect an increase generally. Overall, it beats the Snapdragon 808 handsets from last year and some Snapdragon 810, so performance is quite okay. While that is okay, what's not exactly okay is the temperature, because after 15 minutes of playing Riptide GP2, we got to 41 degrees Celsius, which means overheating, and this happens quite fast, even faster than those 15 minutes I just mentioned. It's still not at the level of 45 degrees of the Z5 Premium, but still it's overheating. Now let's talk about the acoustics. So speaker here and speaker here, two front speakers, top and bottom, and the music app is still here. It's not called Walkman. That's been happening for a while now. We have a huge array of organization settings here, and you can view the songs like this. And I guess it's time to give it a go. I can say it has Spotify integration and a lot of extra settings that you can access. Settings, and here you can find the audio ones. We have this one here that upgrades the quality of compressed music up to high-res audio or close to high-res audio. We got Clear Audio Plus, sound effects, an equalizer with 5 custom channels, clear bass, automatic optimization for headphones, S4 front surround, dynamic normalizer, and once again a ton of options. But let's actually listen to the speakers. Okay, so things to remember here: we got a mid-level volume, good clarity, good bass, and pretty okay surround. You don't have to take my word for it, because we have a decibel meter and we used it to measure these things. So at the back of the phone we scored a pretty disappointing 79.9 decibels, while at the front the result was pretty okay, 83.2 decibels. This is quite good. It beats the Huawei P8 Lite, but it's below the Sony Xperia M5 and very close to the iPhone 6 Plus, for example. There's also FM radio in the mix, and people usually also want to talk about headphones. These are the headphones that Sony bundles with the device. I was surprised by how thick the wire was. People don't pay attention to details, but I do. It's a very thick wire. Anyway, these headphones have some buds that tend to absorb dirt, like lint, cat hair, and things like that, so you have to clean them often. They have good isolation, they're loud, but I've heard louder. They have a good bass, crisp sound, and they're good, but they're below what HTC and Samsung are offering right now. So the acoustics are, I would say, reasonable, and now let's move forward to other aspects. So it's time to talk about the camera. At the back of the Sony Xperia Z5 there's a 23 megapixel shooter right here with an LED flash, and the sensor measures about 1/2 of an inch or so. It takes focus in 0.03 seconds, autofocus, does up to 8x digital zoom, has a G-lens, f2.0 aperture, we have a dedicated physical camera button, 5 megapixel selfie shooter, and the camera UI should feel familiar if you watched our review of the Sony Xperia Z5 Premium. This is an updated UI compared to what you saw in the unboxing. It's now swipe based. We have the usual camera apps including augmented reality options, 4K video, stickers. These are the video capture options. You can take Full HD in 30 or 60 frames per second. Then we got the Superior Auto that detects the mode you're shooting in, and then we have the manual one with a ton of sub settings. We got HDR, we got ISO, we also have some scenes like these ones here, there are a ton of them, and you can tweak the white balance and exposure, but no trace of a tweak for the shutter speed. Other things we're mentioning, well, the capture is kind of slow, as you can see, and the focus is reasonably fast. while the zoom is also pretty fluid. So that's it about the gallery and the camera app, and now it's time to go to the actual gallery of photos and have a look at what we shot. So we have 162 items to look at, pretty impressive. First, we start off during the day. It was a very sunny March day, and overall the shots feel pretty much like the ones taken with the Sony Xperia Z5 Premium. I found it very hard to focus on close-ups. The camera tended to focus in the distance rather than close-up, so I kept tapping on the screen. It didn't want to focus on close things. I found the color reproduction to be great, very realistic, very good lighting and shadows, and if you take any of these landscape shots and zoom in, you'll be surprised to see there's no detail loss, which shows the big resolution we have here. At first glance, I would have to say that the level of detail is superior to any iPhone, and the device I tested recently, the Galaxy S7 Edge, once again courtesy of the high resolution. You keep zooming in, you'll find excellent quality, that's for sure. The texture of these stone monuments is also pretty impressive, and at some point we took an HDR which felt a bit too white. Then we took the proverbial close-ups of flowers, which took some work because once again the camera focuses very hard. Of course, selfies were also part of the experience, and they felt a bit unclear, and they had some strange hues applied on top of the camera. I don't understand exactly why. The posters and text shots looked very nice, and the camera has no problem in full sun. Here it was a very sunny area and still no problem for the cam, so that's got to count for something. Now the panorama we'd taken, well, it had a pretty poor resolution, didn't exactly impress me. Here you can see a bunch of other shots of colorful graffiti, attempts at close-ups and macros, and that's the panorama. As you can see, it's pretty underwhelming, not very wide. Now if you want to check out some low-light captures, we start off here with a very powerful flash, that's for sure, without flash and then with flash, certain difference, a bit washed out because of the flash, and just like it happened with the Xperia Z5 Premium, there's this bluish hue on top of the image, but the flash pretty much saves it. Once again, very much a bluish hue on top of the image. The colors look great when the flash is activated. When the flash isn't present, the image gets grainy, and close-ups look pretty nice, but only with the flash. The street light halos are pretty much okay, I have to say, and when you're using night scene, you'll notice an improvement in the image quality, although you have to sit still for a bit and wait for it to be applied and to focus properly. So thanks to night scene, you get rid of the bluish hues, but then again the resolution is smaller because you're taking 8 megapixel shots. Pretty good colors and pretty good brightness, that's what you have to remember when it comes to low light shots. My general feeling was that this camera is able to take pictures that have more realistic colors than the Huawei Mate 8, and the details surpass all the iPhones. We have perfect clarity minus the close-up, so I'm generally happy with the camera photo capture. When it comes to video, we shot in MP4, 30 or 60 frames per second in Full HD with a 17 megapixel bitrate and the 4K when need be. Okay, so this is a 4K video, I'm starting with it. It has pretty poor stabilization, of course the image is crisp and clear. There are some wind problems. The microphones would be good, but when it comes to the wind, well, they cannot face it. And the clarity and exposure are quite good. Don't get me wrong, even though we have this lack of stabilization I mean, the quality and clarity is quite good here. There's no focus problem. We got a cinematic view in the 60 frames per second video. Even moving subjects are caught pretty much okay. And setting up the exposure from light to darkness is done in excellent fashion. Okay, one more video before we go. I talked before about moving subjects, so absolutely no problem with moving subjects in the frame. Brightness and colors all okay. However, at night things are a bit on the underwhelming side. So video capture at night, it's blue, it's grainy, but somehow the colors remain okay. Speaking of okay, the general aspect of the video capture was pretty good, aside from the stabilization lack and the low light with this blue halo on top of it. I'd say the video capture is at about 10% inferior compared to the iPhone 6s. Okay, totally done with the camera, time to talk about performance, and this time performance refers to the web browser. Here we have to resort to Chrome, and I'm going to load GSMDome.com provided I can type it properly. Here we go. Not the fastest browser in the world, that's for sure, so I would only call the speed okay. This is the virtual keyboard with a bit of swipe action, and in spite of what you saw before, the loading of our website, the benchmark results for the browser, I mean SunSpider, BrowserMark and Velamo, were quite good. Now, if you want to talk about connectivity, we're here for you, and connectivity includes here LTE with up to 300 Mbps download depending on your region. We got NFC, Bluetooth 4.1, Wi-Fi 802.11, A, B, G and AC dual band. There's GPS, we got active noise cancelling, and in the dialer section you'll find features like speed dial and smart dial. The calls are pretty loud and sound quality is good. Signal is also good, and when we tested the Wi-Fi speed, things were also good, as shown here. 26 Mbps download, 27 in upload, so we're doing just fine. Time to chat about the battery, so let's not leave the gallery just yet. And we're dealing with a 2900 mAh unit that sadly underperformed, and it only offered us 8 hours and 14 minutes of continuous HD video playback. This is so weak that it's actually below the entry-level phone Sony Xperia E4G, so quite a letdown, while the work battery life in PCMark is only 5 hours and 45 minutes. It's below the entry-level phone Coolpad Modena and the Xperia E4, to give you an idea of what's happening. The Sony Xperia Z5 charges in 2 hours and 2 minutes, so that's reasonable. A shocking find that I came upon. So usually we're used to the stamina battery saving features. Well, once you get Marshmallow, those are gone. You only have battery saver and optimization, and obviously you have the dose mode courtesy of Marshmallow. So once Marshmallow comes, no more stamina mode. Speaking of OS and things like that, let's see exactly what we're running here. So it's Android 6.0 Marshmallow. Originally, when we unboxed the phone, it had Lollipop, so it has been updated. The interface feels a smidge, only a smidge more fluid. It was already fluid, but there's an extra bit of fluidity applied. The settings are now better organized. They seem to have bigger icons and improved spacing among them, and generally improved management. Multitasking, it's still based on a carousel, and we still have those let's say floating widgets that allow you to use two apps at the same time with them floating on the screen in a smaller version. As usual for Sony, we have some beautiful widgets, wallpapers and themes. You can check those out here based on transparency, vivid colors, very glossy icons. If you're familiar with the PlayStation interface, that's basically it. Lots of transparency and glossy things. An interesting thing, if you swipe down in the home screen, you'll be able to find an option to search applications like in iOS. Well, other than that, we have a stock drop-down area with notifications, quick settings. Speaking of settings, you can tweak connectivity options, you can tweak the themes, with a lock to pick from and the option to personalize your experience however you want. Call settings, sound and notification, battery usage, memory, and finally security, where you can have your fingerprint manager, set up screen lock, select a pin. In case you didn't get it, we're testing the fingerprint scanner embedded into the power button right here. Okay, and this is how the setup is started. It's longer than I've seen on other devices. For example, on the iPhones, the setup process is much shorter if my memory serves me well. Okay, still doing that. And because this button is not very comfy, sometimes it happened to me that I would press it and still it wouldn't register my fingerprint. So here we go. Apparently it wasn't enough to unlock it. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's try again. This time it worked, so one more attempt. This time it also worked. So because of the poor design of the power button, somehow poorer than the Xperia Z5 Premium, it's not always comfy to authenticate like that. Now as far as the apps go, I counted them, there are 49 apps. So close to the bloatware area, these ones here are totally useless. They came pre-installed with this version, maybe they won't be on your version. Anyway, things to remember, we got the Life Log app that basically monitors everything you do, how much gaming you perform, how much you cycle, how much music you listen, how much video you watch. It's basically a bit creepy, but it's a journal into your life. Then we have movie creator, sketch, track ID, Facebook, PlayStation apps, Google apps, let's say productivity apps, and that's pretty much it. So overall a bit of bloatware, but a very good looking interface. Now it's time for the verdict related to the Sony Xperia Z5. So on the pro side, we have an elegant and compact phone with a bright and crisp screen, okay performance, good acoustics, and great picture and video capture minus the close-ups and low light, and a nice UI plus no lag, and once again good performance and can run any game. Now on the con side, we have here those cutting edges, and I don't say cutting edge like innovative, but really cutting, as uncomfortable. We have the uncomfy buttons with their strange placement, there's the overheating issue, there are the focus problems in close-ups, there's poor low light capture, the lack of optical image stabilization, and probably the worst of all, the battery that's quite poor for modern standards and for a wannabe flagship. And then we have the slight bloatware I mentioned before. So overall, this feels like a good camera with a good display and a phone attached for good measure. So if you want a solid camera and on a Sony phone, this is pretty much it. However, when it comes to close-ups, you'll be a bit disappointed. Ergonomy and battery are the core problems here, and if you want shots at night, you're better off with some other flagship. It gets a bit hot, takes good pictures, has okay performance, has one of the best user interfaces, and the price seems to be dropping recently, so that's got to count for something. But in the end, you're left with the uncomfy design. This is it from GSMDome.com. This is the review of the Sony Xperia Z5. Bye bye.